Hello, and welcome to, it's not a Two Historians, but I'll explain more in the actual video. But before we get too started, today is a special one with Glynn Stewart, and we explain in the discussion why we are chatting to it with each other. But before we get started too much, I want to say this book. It's Glynn's latest, and I think it's a really cool one myself. It's... How do I put this about his series? I find the characters interesting. It's not my area of sci-fi that I normally read. I'm normally sort of a harder sci-fi. I like his Peacekeepers of Soul series. That's my favourite. I'm always honest about that one. But I have, especially because we were talking about it in this video, and after we finished the video, I went and downloaded the Kindle last night and actually had my system. I didn't download the audiobook. I got the Kindle, and I got my system to sort of read the Kindle a bit to me while I was doing some work in the roof. And I found the characters really quite cool. Again, not my normal area of sci-fi, but if you do like I would say not a Western. It looks like a Western setting, but it's not a Western. And you want something interesting, I would say going and reading this series is worthwhile. It really is worthwhile, and it's quite interesting the way he plays it, because the character in there has both his own soul and the soul of another in there. I would describe it. Glynn puts it as the minds, but I'd say it's the souls, and in his body, and it's how you experience life when you have both. You have both your own soul seeing it for the first time, and this older soul, and you're both jaded to an extent, seeing the world. It's quite... He does it well, is what I'm going to say. Anyway, to today's discussion. Hello, and welcome to a bit of a different, but not altogether unusual version of Two Historians with me, because basically the person who was supposed to be recording this week's Two Historians with me has had some wonderful but incredibly unexpected news. So I'm going to send out my best wishes to them. I'm not going to announce their news to the world, but I'm going to send out my best wishes and hope they have a wonderful time and wish them all the best. Glynn does know the story, but I don't think it's ours to share with the world. But so all the best to them. And well, I was chatting with Glynn anyway, and we were talking about books, and we were talking about how history books and etc. do filter into your work in terms of your science fiction you do. We were also talking about book reviews and the whole critical process of how you get feedback from books and what they do come back. And I have to say, I have this on both YouTube videos and book reviews, and that sometimes I tend to look at the 3-star reviews more than I look at the really good ones or the really bad ones. I don't know if you do the same, because the really bad ones are usually just people who don't like me, and they'll do one-word things of like boring or I hate this, and you just go, I can't learn anything from that. I can't improve. That doesn't tell me anything I can work with. But usually the sort of the 3-star middle of the road reviews will be the constructive ones, and the 5-star ones will be going, we just love everything about this book, and you go, yay, I love you, but I can't learn anything from you. So I tend to head for the 3 stars. And yeah, so basically this is just going to be kind of like our normal chats, probably. At some point, you might hear many ideas going back, which you might end up generating either history books from me or wonderful books from Glynn. And just speaking of wonderful books, there's Adept's Path is your most recent one out, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's you doing a Western.
Yeah, so I do a fantasy Western series called Tyrann Card. It's a secondary world fantasy. There are at least some people who are convinced that it's science fiction because they think that everyone on the planet arrived on spaceships, and I'm not sure why.
Look, in most way, all I know is it's got steam trains on the front, and it's got people with bows and also and people who look like they're wizards. It just looks cool. Okay, I will admit this. It's not one I've read myself, but that's because I haven't started on that story yet, because I've been doing other things and buried under other paperwork and writing my own books, so I haven't had as much time for reading lately of fun books. But it's on my list of things to get to, because that's what it's like. I'm usually more of a hard science fiction, Peacekeepers of Soul, your series, and all those things. Mm-hmm. But you always write well. Although the thing that started this discussion was the fact that one person had just commented on this book that you just can't do Westerns. And I was sitting there going, but it's...
Stick to military SF, because the Westerns just something.
But the thing is, it's still science fiction, and it's
Still
you write
speculative.
characters. This is the thing about you. You write characters. I think this is why you and I like you so much, like your book so much, and I hope like you like my book so much, because I see history as a collection of characters wandering along, and you talk about the characters and how they built their history, and you write your books like that. It's how your characters approach stuff, and this is why I find it so realistic. Again, using the example of Peacekeeper's Soul, there's the fact that the principal lead in that, he's still wrestling decisions he made. He made the right decisions for the survival of his species, and he did the right thing for them, but he still ended up doing a very bad thing overall that he has to live with. And that's... I always find it funny, because you'll see in science fictions, people go, that this stuff needs to be got rid of, this stuff, oh, they'll be over it. But you actually go, no, look at the people in reality and history. It stains your soul. Because the nasty secret is you don't want to send out a psychopath to do those jobs because you can't control them. You send out a good person who's going to do the nasty thing because they know it's for it's for their nation's survival, not because they want to do it, because you can stop that. Yeah.
In the case of peacekeepers, you send out good people and you lie to them.
Yes, which is going to
which
make
did
it
not
worse.
help the trauma afterwards, but it got them to pull the trigger at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because I find, and talking about reviews, like it's one of the things that's called out a lot in positive reviews is that I do characters very well, and one of the things that's called out a lot in negative reviews is that I don't do characters very well. And I am not sure what people are expecting is and it's just truthfully, it's just straight. I don't know what people expect, and so to a large extent, I can't write for what people expect. I read my reviews for a little bit of trying to see, if people say there was a particular thing that didn't work in a book or whatever. But most of the time, I really try to not read my reviews because I am a sensitive soul, and I don't enjoy I don't enjoy the stuff that's negative. I find very little of the stuff of reviews they're not meant for me, I think, is one of the key things when dealing with the reviews in fiction stuff. Is some of the reviewers seem to think that they're meant for me, and those are usually the ones who are being kind of mean in my experience. But overall, the reviews aren't meant for the author. They're meant for other readers to kind of judge and see whether they'll like the book or not. It's not about me. It's about someone sees that review, and based off it, they can decide whether or not they want to read the book.
Yeah. See,
I like reading the 5-star reviews because they give me warm fuzzies.
The thing is, I remember when my book came out, most initial quick 5-star reviews which came out were names I recognised from my YouTube channel, and I'm just going, yeah, I know that. I know that one. This is not an unbiased reviewer said. I'm not going to pretend it is.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of those things of though you sit there and you get this a lot on YouTube. YouTube is works slightly different than Amazon and all those the reviews, etc. And those are the two big reviewing where people see the reviews. Is that in YouTube, any comments generate a bump in the algorithm because it's based upon people's reaction, and comments are judged as a reaction. So I always laugh when the people want to leave comments like it's boring or something like that on a video because they're adding a reaction which boosts me up the logarithm.
My impression with Amazon is it feeds into there's a bunch of different, there's not just one type of visibility on Amazon. There are 4 or 5. Several of them are pay to play. That's the paid advertising. Even in the paid advertising spaces, the number of reviews and average rating actually factors into it. They use that to a degree as weighting on the bids that people put in because they want to put an ad in front of people that person will click on and buy on the other end. Though they're perfectly happy to take the money from people selling the ads too. But my impression is that they really do weight a lot of even the pay-to-pay stuff based off of the reviews and the reviews and the ratings. And they do put a lot, and the more reviews and ratings there are, the heavier they weight it, but they do also weight the pace it off of the average rating. And one of the things that you see if you pay a great deal of attention to Amazon reviews is that the more reviews there are, they'll go where the average rating will be.
Yeah.
Just as a general rule.
It's similar with YouTube, I think. The more comments there are, comments liking, sharing, subscribing. If people subscribe to your video, subscribe to your channel while they're watching a video, that'll boost that video up. It's just, it's interaction. It's all driven by interaction, which is a fun thing as someone putting information out into the world. You know, whether you're doing fiction or if you're doing history, you're wanting to share the stuff you're creating with the world. You know, I'm creating a history book. Yes, it's passing on the knowledge, but it's also got my analysis in it. It's got my thinking in it. Usually I try and make sure they're sort of separated by the fact that people can see which are the sentences which are evidentiary and which are the sentences which are analysis, by usually just making sure they're separate sentences, and that sort of thing. You're putting it out there. You're putting the stuff, your work out there. And you want more people to see it. You're not doing it because you want to share it with yourself. You're doing it because you want to share it with other people, because you think it's a story which has to be shared. And
I get paid.
Yeah. And get paid, yes. And get paid. You have to remember, I come from an academic background. This whole concept of getting paid is a foreign thing to me. I'm the person who actually
I've been making a full-time living off books for a decade now.
Yes.
So it's it's very present in my thinking. It doesn't generally impact what I write, but it definitely factors into what am I looking at and assessing things.
It was the fact that when I was employed by, at one point, multiple universities, and I had to get an accountant because one of the universities kept mucking up my pay so badly. And then my credit rating suddenly went up during COVID. And I was sort of going, why's my credit rating improved? And it was because of the regular income from YouTube. It wasn't much money, but because it was regular and came in on the same date every month, suddenly I was considered more creditable.
Yep.
And I was sort of going, okay.
Regular income is always going to look better to someone assessing credit than irregular income.
Yes,
and steadier it is. They are happier if you make $10,000 a month every month for the entire year than if you get $120,000 dropped in your account in December.
Yeah,
because one of these looks like a windfall, and one of these looks like an income stream.
Oh yeah, I do know that, and the thing is, some of the universities, they would pay on free monthly, they pay quarterly. Some of them would pay monthly, technically pay as you earn, all that something, and it was a fun mess. And one university managed to pay national insurance but not pay tax on my PAYE income because they managed to make a mistake, and that caused a fun debate.
Yeah, I imagine.
They deducted the tax from my account, from my payslip, but they didn't pay it to the government. By multiple, I'm presuming multiple clerical errors.
I think the CRA drags you out back and shoots you here if you do that. There's not even like a trial. There's just, the payroll tax auditors just show up with a shotgun.
All I know is that this was the university which led to me having an accountant, and why I have an accountant to sort out my account to this day. Because once you're with them, you go, oh, this makes my life easy. It costs me money every year, but it makes my life less stressful.
For me, I found trying to explain everything, and I didn't think I was doing anything particularly complicated, but trying to explain everything to an accountant took longer than doing it myself.
Yes, but you are an accountant.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why you and I also get on, because we both are the types who have massive Excel spreadsheets of information.
Yeah. I don't think my editors get the notes file for each book. I don't think either of them looks at it, except maybe the character list. I know neither of them looks at the giant spreadsheet of math around the actual ship maneuvers. No,
because don't take this the wrong way. They're editors. They want to have some time off and be able to sleep peacefully at night, and that amount of maths is going to be cruel to them.
Yo.
You know. But it is fun. It is a lot of fun. So speaking of that, what history books have you been reading recently?
I just finished a history of Japanese RPGs, recommended by John Bull, I think is what he's going by online. Yeah. So I just finished reading that, which was interesting. You could tell when the point in the history where it became too much for the author to keep track, to kind of try and... You could tell the difference between the point where he's covering everything in this space and the point where he is trying to choose to what he felt was worth focusing on. The second half of the book kind of ends up feeling a bit like a sprint. Definitely feels like there's less detail than there is in the first half, but overall it was a very good book. History-wise, other than that, I just got through Lambert's No More Napoleons, which I found fascinating. And it actually kind of made a couple of things crystallize in my brain of, right, Waterloo didn't matter. Also, there's the Sabaton's I Emperor video going around, where it's like if Napoleon wins at Waterloo, and what happens? Well, the answer is Napoleon loses 6 months later. But that's not what their video. It's not what the theory they go with in that video. But it is kind of like you look at the situation, everything's like Napoleon he didn't actually have much of a chance.
Well, because France had been absolutely decimated by the years of war before it.
Yep. And everyone else was like, "We're not doing this again."
No, they're literally. It doesn't even last 6 months, because if he wins at Waterloo, yes, he's beaten the Anglo-Dutch forces, but he probably only wins at Waterloo if the Prussians don't arrive, and then the Prussians they fall back on the Russians, and then the Prussians and the Russians come and steamroll him.
Yeah,
and the Austrians and the Swedes.
He basically, no matter what else happens, he loses when the Russians arrive.
Yeah.
And the Russians are already on the move when Waterloo is fought. Like, they end up basically stopping, turning around, and going home.
Yes, there's also the Swedes on the way under one of his former favourite generals.
Yeah.
Because he's taken over Sweden, and it's just the amount of armies marching on the bloke. It's just a case of, yes, you're good general, but at a certain point you're going to run out of troops.
Yeah. You're worth 3 divisions, so they're bringing 12.
Yeah. They know how valuable you are. Then they're bringing more than that to compensate.
Yeah.
And that's literally... And
it's like everything in Europe was already set up by the time 1815 rolled around to make sure that France couldn't become an aggressive expansionist empire again. And the automatic assumption on Napoleon taking control was that was exactly what was going to happen. So everyone was immediately moving to crush him. There was no way.
And they're all nicely being bankrolled by the British.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the way the British work.
And then all the entertaining conversations for about 10 years afterwards of the British threatening to pull that down. The number of times the British were just like, and if you don't do what we want, we'll stop sending you money.
Yes.
Because they were still bankrolling everyone's armies for another 5-6 years, from what I can tell.
It's basically, what people forget is that's basically the model which America pursues post-World War II of how to run its empire. It's basically, we're bankrolling you, so you're going to do what we say. And it works, surprisingly enough. People get very loyal to a paycheck.
Yeah.
Nice
being able to put food on the table.
Yeah, Andrew Lambert
nice to have the table in the first place.
Yeah. Andrew Lambert does have a good turn of phrase in that book. He has a fair number of good turns of phrase in that book. Another fun one which you might enjoy, and you might have already read it because I might have already recommended it to you, but it's this one, Training the Fleet for War by Albert Noffy. It's all the US Navy's fleet problems from the 1920s and 1920s and to 1940, and all the fleet problems they go through, and it's basically going through them. And it's kind of an interesting thing because the way it's structured is it tells you what the fleet problems, what they were aiming for, and then it goes through how they approached it, how they set up the exercise, and what the results were. So it gives you all the details, and it gives you a nice lot of maps and things to work through. But it's kind of interesting to see how they're developing their tactics, and also how many times they're basically going, "We need more destroyers. We need more destroyers. We need more destroyers. We need more destroyers. We need more destroyers."
Yeah.
It's almost a recurring theme from the U.S. Navy at that point. It really
Which is why they build 1,000 of the damn things in the Second World War. Pardon.
Pretty much.
1,000 of them.
Yes, it is. Don't worry. That's fine. It's understandable. Let's put it this way. As I keep trying to explain to people, the U.S. Navy's approach to a cheap warship is a Fletcher class. The Royal Navy's approach to a cheap warship is a Flower class. There is a difference there, and this is expanding into their modern construction, all these things when we're talking about the Constellation class and all these things. That's why. They're different. Yeah. They've got a difference in it. I'm just going to grab another can of Iron Brew from over here quickly.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things. There's a lot of good books out at the moment, and a lot of I do normally like it because I jump between sci-fi and history books in my private reading time when I'm not reading work stuff. And there's a lot of good books in both where it's really interesting to read and lots of really interesting stuff. And with the private,
it's apparently freely available, but the file size is too large to send to Kindle.
Yes, it is. Kindle is the Kindle version is free but massive.
Yeah, 218 megabytes. I have tools. I will make it work.
Yes, the Kindle version's free. I like the hardback version because that's got some heft, and I can use it to pump down on tables and go, yes.
Yeah, I've got a few.
There you go.
I've just discovered that I don't read if it's not on easy. If it's so, it's like because I've got stuff on my phone that's easy to pick up, just open up and read as I'm on my phone. I end up not reading the physical books that I have. Currently, my collection of Friedman books are the weight that's holding that display case down, so I don't need to worry about it tipping.
Friedman books are good for that. They are. They really are good for that.
There will be a few more of those display cases as soon as IKEA will let me order them again. They're being weird about their what's available for delivery right now, I think, because it's December in Calgary.
Yeah. Although, I will say, I don't know if I've ever shown you this. Excuse me. Come on, camera. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm currently being shown your roof and the emotional support submarine.
Yeah, the emotional support submarine is cool. But this book, A Mission of Honor.
Not the
really. It's John McLean. Actually, okay. It's the Royal Navy in the Pacific, 1769 to 1997, and it's a really interesting read to put alongside. And I have actually done this with students when I've been having to rapidly produce something for them to. This is the book. Something for them to do in a class when I'm covering for someone. I've literally been given 10 minutes notice that I've got to cover a seminar. I go around. So take usually something, one of the chapters from the Peacekeepers of the Soul's various books, and take an appropriate section from that book, put them next to each other, and go, okay, let's compare and contrast methodologies. And just as sort of an exercise for them to go through and looking at it, because the point is, it's useful to start off with, and then I can take them from those to more modern examples and through that from there. But yeah, they are good contrasts. It's a fun bit of history. There's a lot of random history the Royal Navy gets up into in the Pacific. Because you always have to remember, the Royal Navy's always in the Pacific, in peacetime. They're basically going, right, if there's a major war, like when certain things break out, like the Boxer Rebellion, we can bring a whole lot of ships here. But in peacetime, we basically want to get by with a couple of frigates and a piece of string.
Yep.
And we've got to represent the romping, stomping British Royal Navy and show everyone that we are here to defend our territories.
Yeah. And our friends when we no longer have territories.
Yes. Friends.
The freedom of navigation cruises they go these days.
Oh, the freedom of navigation stuff is always fun. I'm just waiting for someone to try and work out what that's going to be like in space. What is a freedom of navigation cruise going to look like in space? Is it going to be, okay, we can still march through this solar system? We can still send ships through the solar system, just because you're the dominant planet in the solar system, you can't tell us to keep out of? Or is it a case of, no, if we control the planet, we control the solar system, and therefore it's our solar system? What are the rules going to be in space?
It will depend on what the mechanics look like.
Yeah.
Effectively. I mean, if the mechanics are that it's going to take us, that, the short jaunt to Alpha Centauri is 25 years, then freedom of maneuver is irrelevant, because you're not sailing to anyone else's star system. You are literally pointing your ship at where you're going and making sure you have the supplies to get there, because there's any detour adds years to your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we're looking at, turns out that wormholes are actually something practical, then you have choke points, and you're securing your choke points, and freedom of navigation is, we have the choke point and you do not get to come through if you're not friendly. Or if you're looking at something more Alcubierre drive, where you're doing point to point to point, then again, you're not actually you're not as concerned about going through systems. Then it depends on whether you need to stop in systems to refuel or something similar. In which case, again, it's a bit more than just freedom of navigation. It's freedom to go find a gas station. It might well be that the equivalent of, you can't come in. So Sol system, you can't come inside the asteroid belt, but no one's going to stop hoovering up to Saturn or Jupiter and sucking some hydrogen into your tanks, because that's just not worth it.
It's going to be
it always depends and stuff like that. What are the parameters? And that's the thing because we don't know what the parameters are going to be like yet. We have 3, 4, 5 possibilities. My understanding is that there's a whole bunch of scientific experimentation going on right now around some of the theoretical stuff, that if we can create this small situation in a controlled lab, it suggests that an Alcubierre style gravity well is possible. And similar things around wormholes, quantum entanglement, and such, and effectively disproved that quantum entanglement is faster than light. Shame for science fiction authors, but hey.
It's going to be interesting, because I'm thinking, well, one of the big issues is also going to be, to what extent can you enforce these things?
Yes. And that's where I was thinking about the thing of, the gas giant is not necessarily something you can afford to secure, not just because it's so far away from your center of power, but also because the Jupiter planetary system is absolutely freaking mess.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing to say, we say Jupiter is a planet, and it's like, yeah, so it's the same. It's just as easy to, put in orbital patrol or whatever as Earth. It's like, no. It's a completely different scale, multiple orders of magnitude different.
You would need more stations than just one anchored in each of the Lagrange points.
Yeah.
Which, if I remember correctly, is the name of the position on the orbit that you can monitor things from.
It's like Jupiter, you're looking at, if nothing else, you're looking at the Lagrange points. Because Earth, you're basically talking about the Earth-Moon Lagrange points and the Earth-Sun Lagrange points. Jupiter, you're talking about the Jupiter-Moon Lagrange points, but you've got 9 moons that are actually relevant. So suddenly you're talking 40 Lagrange points, not 4 that are actually near the planet. And of course, those Lagrange points are more complex because they're multi-body problems instead of 2-body problems.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that you actually have, theoretically you have Lagrange points for each of the large moons, but I'm not sure how much the presence of the other moons would render those unreliable. That's outside my scope of math.
That's, how do I put this, complicated enough that I could see from a defensive perspective, and judging by my astrophysics, which was taken many, many moons ago, as I said before, I did astrophysics, a lot of astrophysics and a lot of astrophysics study while I was even in university, but I did it the whole way up to A level and when I was leaving school, and then I carried on in university as well as doing history primarily, but picking up as much philosophy and physics and IT as I could, because I was working as an IT
That's all my
technician.
options with engineering courses, so I have a less broad education than I would prefer from a university level, because I have half of a degree that got basically shoved into every spot in the degree I actually have where they could fit courses.
Yeah, I was a geek. I admit it. I ended up doing. I basically did enough modules that when they calculated when I was finishing, I could have graduated with 2 degrees. The B-Res sort of I got in history, where I did the B-Res course, but it wasn't accepted yet, so I graduated with BA Hons instead. But B-Res was when you did 2 dissertations. And I could have got another Bachelor Honours in a combined degree of philosophy and something, and I just went, no, I only need 1 degree, I don't need 2. I just did them because I was working at university anyway. I was working as an IT technician, and I was able to able to audit and take as many courses as I wanted. They really weren't worried in those days, and so I did. I signed up to extra stuff because it was fun. And did I mention
I was working basically full time when I went through university the second time, so the fact that I didn't need to take options because they'd stuffed them full of the courses for my engineering degree was really convenient.
That's helpful. It is helpful. But yeah, it's one of those things of, we have the joy that maritime law, the quote I will often give people is about 90% of maritime law isn't written yet, and of the maritime law which is written, about 90% of it is precedents rather than statute. So it's how much are you going to follow the precedent, because you can always ignore it because no one signed up to it. It gets even more fun once you consider quite a lot of people tend to go, well, space technically therefore qualifies as being under maritime law because we don't actually have space law realistically yet.
Yep, there's a couple pieces.
There's a couple of pieces, but it's even less than maritime law. So usually they go, well, if anything's going to define in this space which is extra national, it's going to be maritime law.
Maritime law makes the most sense.
Yeah. And so that led to, of course, the great scene in the Martian where Matt Damon's character in the book, the same person declares that they're now going to be technically a pirate because they're taking over something.
Taking over a ship in international waters.
Yeah, I know. And I was sitting there looking at the ship going, goodness gracious me, the amount of pirates who would love to have done that on that position. The glory of being the first pirate on Mars. Who cares about being the first colonist? Being the first pirate on Mars. One will get you down in the history books. One will get you down in the movies. Which one would you prefer to be? But it was a case of...
One gets me home alive.
It was a case... It was a fun one to talk through with the students because they were going, really? Yeah. And that makes even more fun once you start to consider space, because whilst we have treaties about not militarizing space, etc., we all sort of wink at that, because the amount of spy intelligence satellites up there is frankly...
But they're not supposed to be armed.
No. They're not supposed to be armed.
Are they? I'm not taking bets.
No. You and I are both taking the policy of, they're not supposed to be, but we all remember the ships built after the Washington and London naval treaties, and what they were supposed to be.
Is it the Russians or the Chinese that have actually were testing anti-satellite weaponry in the last couple of years?
And the Americans, everyone's tested various fun things.
Yeah.
It's
definitely saw some recent headlines about that. Oh, though my concept of recent is drunk and lost in a back alley somewhere. So
yes,
the last few years are not well separated for me. Moving a bunch does nasty things to the brain.
I do think also possibly the longest time you've gone without being heavily buried with writing or structuring the writing has been on your trips to the UK and your trips to Japan. I think they're your times where you take your longest gaps off, and they don't exactly turn up that often. But you didn't. I think you enjoyed Japan when you weren't unwell, which was quite sad.
That part sucked. Or stuck in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It took taking me 3 days longer to get to Japan than planned was definitely a downside.
The fact that you started out the earliest of us and you only arrived basically almost a little bit before me in some regards, and I was the last to arrive.
I was supposed to be the first to arrive, and I was the second last to arrive. No, the worst part about all of it was being stuck in Vancouver for several days, and when I actually got out and flew to Tokyo, I flew from Calgary. I had to turn around and go back to Calgary, and then fly to Tokyo from there. I will not name the airline that failed dramatically, but yeah, my airline failed dramatically.
It did. I have been looking up recent flights to sort of Canada and basically potentially doing a trip out there at some point to go see a certain tribal class destroyer, which I do love to see occasionally. And I worked out that there are flights occasionally, it seems, I'm never quite sure about them, from Exeter to Halifax.
That makes sense. It's anything like the Calgary to Edinburgh direct. It basically is not during winter.
Yeah. It's an interesting time. But the thing again is sort of you start with the travelling around and the history you see, this is something personal also because Japan's influenced some of my approaches. Some stuff I've learned there has inspired me with a couple of books I'm working on. Has Japan influenced you at all?
Definitely shown up in a couple places. You can track where I've been and what I'm currently paying attention to often by the names that show up new in a book.
Yeah.
So like if there seems like there's a trend, and I hope that you can't necessarily see the trends because it's like if I'm coming up with names for new star systems and stuff, they tend to be pretty random. Mm-hmm. And then there will be 2 or 3 that aren't. So there is a whole thing that once the details start to come out is a result of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in the latest House Admin book, where there are actually there was a multi-system colony project of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which is
I'm not surprised.
Now, half of it now belongs to one of the powers involved in the Cold War, and half of it is independent, and it's all just a great big mess.
And probably still all owned actually by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries through subsidiaries.
Probably.
I actually know the thing I'm always surprised is if the 7-Eleven baked goods haven't appeared in your works recently.
Nope. I have made complaining noises about the fact that 7-Elevens here aren't as good, but I have to admit that I should probably at least poke my head in one here before I keep doing that too much. Look, I know they don't have onigiri, but I mean, and I can't really judge the quality of the baked goods because here I can't eat them because I could have, when I'm not traveling with my partner, when I'm traveling away from my partner, I can have a limited amount of gluten. Not nearly as much as I had while I was in Japan, really. But,
Yeah, you
but I'm
really
certainly not going to be trying regular baked goods at a 7-Eleven here where I'm coming home.
Yeah, the baked goods in Japan were something none of us were expecting, and our waistlines did suffer for. They did.
I had to explain. I actually got to tell the local mochi donut store in Calgary that I had mochi donuts in several places in Japan, and only one of them was better than Sweet Rice.
Oh, that must have made them very proud.
Conflicted. Like the little bakery in Hiroshima was probably better than Sweet Rice in Calgary, but a couple other places, and especially like Mr. Donut, God, the little Mochi Donut bakery here isn't even operating on the same racetrack as Mr. Donut. They left them behind several races ago.
Yeah. I do wish Mr. Donut though came to the UK because I could those little donuts they had that were sort of little ponder rings were really really nice. But
yeah, the place here makes them and they're better.
Oh god, so
I'm not lacking.
Cruelty to Alex is going on here.
Well, I mean, there is also one of Canada's largest naval archives is here in Calgary.
I know.
At the Museum of the Regiments, or it's the military museums now.
Yeah, I will be visiting at some point. But the thing again, speaking about Hiroshima, and that's the interesting thing again, because that goes back to Henry Wong, to my experience, because It's the experience of going around Hiroshima was that museum was an experience and a half going around. It's something which I would tell everyone to do. I tell no one to stay in the same hotel I stayed in because, frankly, it was probably one of the most uncomfortable beds of the entire trip.
I will say you are doing something wrong as a business when I Google your business, and the first thing that comes up is the fact that the business and its leadership are war crime deniers. And this is the first thing that comes up when I Google your business, trying to look for a mistake.
To be fair, we were picked up when we were booking our hotels. We were literally booking on which was the closest proximity to train station rather than searching them.
Well,
we found out details
in that area.
Afterwards.
We were booking on what was left. Not even in Hiroshima.
In Hiroshima,
I think the expo. The World Expo was somewhere around there, and that was why it was so hard to find.
We're supposed to be in Kure, and basically Kure ran out of hotel rooms, so the three of us ended up staying in Hiroshima, and we were just looking for a hotel which had free rooms. We booked into one, and we just went. It's a business hotel. The staff were perfectly lovely. I will say that the staff were perfectly lovely. The breakfast was probably the most complicated breakfast of the entire trip. And I say this when including, I know the one at Sasebo where I took a look at their breakfast and they said we could order it, book into it or not, choose whether to book into it or not the night before. Chose not to book into it and went to the bakery next door. And that's because the Sasebo breakfast I knew from what they were talking about was going to be incredible. It was going to be very. I don't want this to come across a problem. I knew it was going to be very much a Japanese-style breakfast. And I was looking at the options, and there were the options of the Japanese breakfast, which I liked, and I couldn't see any of them on that menu. And I quite liked a lot of the Japanese options. I was enjoying the grilled fish and the various noodles, etc. But I was looking at the options and going, oh, that's that. And that was a kind of weird conversation to have with the rest of the team who had gone to Sasebo, because you had gone home by that point.
Yeah, I went home.
It was literally going to. It's a very Japanese breakfast, and so far we've been okay with the Japanese breakfast. But this is full of the stuff which I don't think we're going to want. So I'm not going to book in for breakfast. I'm going to go to the bakery across the way. And two of them booked in. One didn't. One followed me straight to the bakery. The other two turned up about 20 minutes later. They tried, and then they gone no, because it was cold noodles, and I'm sorry. I tried in Japan, I really did, but I never got my mind around cold noodles. For me, noodles are supposed to be something which is warm. I know it's something in Japan. I know cold noodles are part of it, but I never,
I only actually ended up with one hotel where breakfast was included because of how I'd been booking my things or something like that. And that one, I walked down the first morning, I looked at the breakfast, I sort of blinked, looked at it again, and went, this isn't Japanese breakfast. It's some horrific attempt at an American continental breakfast, and I'm going somewhere else for food.
Yeah. Although
I won't name that hotel. That was in Yokosuka.
Yeah. Oh, I know that hotel. Yeah. Whereas we were staying in the, we were in the Mercure, wasn't it? We were in the Mercure, I think, in the Yokosuka. Right, yeah. And you weren't. We were. Three of us were, and which was supposed to be the second choice hotel for the trip because it was the second most recommended one. And we had this beautiful panoramic view of the base and this wonderful, lovely, gorgeous, different curries every morning, all sorts of things we were going through, and
the place I stayed in was close to the base and extremely solid.
Yes.
It wasn't fancy, but it had, I was basically staying in a bachelor apartment, and everything was there, everything was functional, everything was designed to not be broken by drunken Marines. And then they gave me something like 30 drunk tickets for 4 days.
Yeah. We've all seen those sort of hotels. Our travels around the world. Hotels near Navy bases and Marine bases and Army bases. They always have. There's always a couple of sort of like that. Yeah.
The hard part was convincing them I wasn't government of some kind.
Yeah, I just gave up with that one.
I should have, because then they might have given me a discount. They seem to be headed in that direction, but well,
they seem to presume a British person going around saying they're a historian who dresses in black the whole time because all I brought with me were black t-shirts.
well,
Mainly because they
you
went with
do
everything.
kind of radiate intelligence analyst. Anyone with the senses to pick that up. I didn't think I did. I'm pretty sure I was being picked up
Oh,
as.
God.
Honestly, I was probably being picked up as auditor.
Something. Being picked up as something specialist. You never know. There is that whole movie about the accountant.
Exactly.
You know, they could be worried about what you were going to do to them.
I don't know. The auditor for the Canadian government checking in on there apparently are Canadian ships there sometimes. I think that was where my friend's ship stopped over.
Yeah. And there was an Australian ship there while we were there. They were very nice. The Australian crew were lovely. But yeah. So
there was an RCN ship there after a couple of weeks after us, and like I said, I'm pretty sure that's where my friend's ship stopped over when they were on tour.
Yeah, it's a popular basis. I think it's where I think pretty much everything other than Queen Elizabeth went in there at one point. I don't think rather than Prince of Wales on the recent one. I think everything other than Queen Elizabeth when she went out there went in there. Yeah,
they had
they have fun.
47 was there when one of the US's big carriers was there just a couple weeks after we were there.
Yeah. So, with that being said, speaking as someone who does write, as they say, I'd like to say hard science fiction, but I would say you write everything. You write characters and you design a setting for the characters. To me,
I build settings, and then I basically build settings and then drop characters into them and see what happens.
Yeah.
There's a plot. People get confused by the fact that these days I'm seeing a lot of I have moved towards somewhat more character-focused stories, and people seem to be really confused by the fact that the half of the book that is the person wrestling with themselves is actually the story more than the battles.
Well, to me, it's you're trying very much to capture humanity, and you're trying to capture the human part of the story. And again, it's the joy that being a historian is, as I said, one of the reasons why I like using your books when I'm teaching is because in your books you show what the character's thinking. In history, I can usually say, well, this is what was written down, this is what happened, and I have no idea what the person was thinking, but I'm going to extrapolate from this.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm having to do. I'm extrapolating from that.
And then I draw on those assorted extrapolations by you and other historians to estimate what someone would be thinking in the situations I make up.
Yeah. That and probably knowing you reading a fair number of autobiographies and biographies.
No.
No?
I haven't actually read very many autobiographies. Like, I've read some, but Nelson Mandela's is the only one I can remember off the top. Like, I know I've read others, but Nelson Mandela's is the only one that comes to mind.
I'm sure I managed to. I did tell you had to buy Philip Vian's Action This Day at some point.
Possibly, but I haven't.
You really should. You'd love it. Because it's basically Philip Vian being a minor pirate at various points and being openly admitting about it. You know, he has the ability to avoid staff work and being put in the Admiralty of an absolute genius. I don't know how he does it half the time he does. He manages to get away with these things, and you sit there and go, you should probably be doing staff duty. No. Why would I want to do staff duty? That'd be terrible. I'd actually have to do some work. You know, I don't want to do staff duty.
Doing is work. For most people.
Yeah, no. It's not work, it's fun. Doing this stuff is fun. It's, you know, it's one of those things of they are doing the stuff they're doing because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And they enjoy doing it. But it's very much a case of they don't want to do the paperwork side. He wants to do the leading fleet sides. He wants to do the leading ship sides. And that's what he does. And he avoids all these things. And then they're so surprised when he gets to being a senior naval officer. And they're going, so how are you going to set up your staff? And he's sort of going, I've never been on one. Did you go to staff college? No. No.
Huh?
And he said, okay, and I would love to say that's unusual for the Royal Navy, but that's actually rather par for the course. Which is why we always hope they actually make people go to Staff College at certain points, because it's useful if they do go to Staff College, if they do get some staff training, and they do get some experience, and they do go and do these things. But it's...
Pulled that on a poor character in Starship's Mage, where it's like, you do realize the reason we're shoving you into a staff position is because the last check mark we need to make you a Commodore. You haven't been captain long enough to be a Commodore, so you don't actually. So we're kind of checking this off sooner, given that you're already one of the youngest captains in the fleet. But if we check this off, then you basically will make it to Commodore as soon as it doesn't look stupid.
Yeah, that's often the problem when you're starting having it. Because, of course, with navies and with most armed forces, there are two options, really, for rewarding people who they want to hold on to. Are medals and promotions.
Yep.
And the trouble with medals is you have to explain... They tend to have to actually require more explanation outside the service than promotions.
Mm.
You can promote someone and say they're doing a very good job, but you don't have to. You don't have to explain that to as many people as you do as, we're giving this person a medal. That's a very high medal. Yes, they have to have an audience with the monarch or the head of state to get the medal. Okay, so now you're going to have to explain it to the press while they're getting it. You're going to have to explain to... You might not want to. So the promotion is often easier.
This character, at the rank of captain, this character had 3 medals of valor and had been appointed to the rank of colonel of Marines, which was very convenient to the commander of the planetary garrison, who needed to make her sit down, shut up, and listen. Because, like, that rank might be honorary, but you still report, but you still are under my authority because you are a Marine.
Yeah, honorary ranks can go both ways. It's so much fun that way. But again, that's not without that's with complete historical precedent, because a lot of Royal Navy officers used to be senior officers also in the Royal Marines, as a way to draw extra pay, but also as a way for the British government to give them extra pay without promoting them when they didn't want to do that. They just look away and go, oh yeah, you're on a ship which is supposed to have a full Lieutenant Colonel of Marines on an attachment? Oh yeah, you can draw the extra pay.
Mm.
It was a way of making it work. It didn't always work, but, it was a way of making it, trying to make it...
You have the people, both in fiction and in reality, who find themselves in the middle of a disproportionate number of crises, and you can only stick medals and promotions on them so often before you can't really promote them any further, and you really don't want to have to come up with the name for what the 4th Medal of Honor is called.
Yes, there's a certain point at which you're going, okay, if we promote you any further, you're going to be my boss, and I'm not comfortable with that, and I can't give you any more medals. That's the point at which you start turning around to, hopefully you do have monarch, and start going, so what titles and nobility are available? Let's start working up those ranks.
Basically, I mean, everything was looking great for her career, and then she got left behind when they had to withdraw and leave a planet enemy occupation. So she's having a interesting few weeks in the next book coming in.
I'm sure she's having a lot of fun.
It's the book that my copy editor came back and told me needed content warnings for suicide bombing.
This is the trouble with your friend, with one of your friends being as much of a naval historian and involved as much as I am. To me, it's a part of warfare. That's just a part of modern warfare. Especially in the grey zone of war, and it's almost I am semi-expecting it being in books about war. So, yeah. But I can understand why.
I will admit that in hindsight, I should have warned the New York resident who was near the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001, that planes were used as suicide bomb delivery mechanisms in the book. That feels like something I probably should have given him a heads up on.
Yes, you possibly should have done.
I mean, as it is actually covered in the book, they were drones, not piloted, but that doesn't really change the...
Well, that's when you get into the whole debate that currently I have with people. If a drone is an uncrewed drone is used to hit a target with a load of explosives, is it a drone or is it a missile? Because basically, what is a missile but a drone which commits suicide with explosives on it?
Yep. Yeah. No, Dean, I've seen that bouncing around, and I end up coming down to the I don't know, and I'm going to leave that to people who know better.
Most of the debate we have these days as well, a missile's got more onboard control than most drones do, in a sort of self-control. So I go, yeah, but that difference is becoming very, very narrow now. Very, very narrow.
Really, it's more that these days it's more, I guess, that, I mean, it depends on the type of drone. I automatically go to visualizing the like quadcopter things that you can get for a lot of purposes around, and that like it has a very different movement mechanism than a missile, which is generally has a rocket on the back.
Or jet turbine, or some or variations of those. Yeah,
but that's not really generally we think. Yeah, like I wouldn't want to be the one going, here's exactly where we're going to try and draw the distinction here.
Oh no, that's left up to people like me to have all sorts of arguments and then go, in the end, what are the practitioners calling it different? What are the differentials? Although, that's the fun thing is, when you're talking about Star Trek, they often they decided to go with torpedoes.
Yes.
For the photonic weapons. And you sit there and go, and missiles or something else. And then they have plasma torpedoes as well, and you sit there and go and look at the system and you go,
quantum torpedoes. Are there missiles in Star Trek?
There are missiles in some of the games.
Oh, okay.
And there are missiles in some of this sort of discussed in some of the programs, but there are lots of missiles in the books and the games. I used to play something called Starfleet Command Gold, I think it was. Wasn't it Starfleet Command Gold Edition or something like that? And my favorite ships were the missile trucks, because because unlike the torpedoes, they could basically, you'd fire them out and they'd go to the target wherever it was, and that was the main differential. The torpedo has a sort of angle of 45 degrees from its launcher to go to its target, whereas the missiles could draw out and go, oh, target's over there. We're going over there. And so I would tend to do a maneuver of drop in, fire off the missiles, and then be moving off in a different direction, so that the enemy would be going, you're not there for me to fight. There's a load of missiles coming in, and if I was feeling really cruel, I'd drop off some missile shuttles as well at the same time. It's an old game. If anyone's seen Starfleet Command Guard,
I have to admit, you say it's an old game. I played Starfleet Battles, which was the precursor to that.
Yes, I played that as well.
No. I have played a lot of very old games over the years. I don't so much anymore. This was back when I had no money and abandonware and things were entertaining.
I used to like buying old games in second-hand stores because they used to be quite cool. And when they were on DVD, now everything's on Steam. It's kind of destroyed the whole fun of the second-hand computer game market.
Yeah. At least you also have, because one of the things I appreciate GOG for is that they have put a lot of effort into tracking down older games and finding ways to make them work on modern computers. Because it used to be you had to sort out all of that yourself.
Oh, I have to say, I do. Starfleet Command, I now have it working on this computer because I found an online seller who has turned it into a version which will work with modern systems. And it's not quite the same. They've sharpened up the imagery. And I was sort of going, I kind of like the retro imagery. It was funny. Now they made it all look all nice and new and crisp. And I'm sort of going, yeah, I'll accept it, because technically it is better. There's part of me going, but that's not how it used to look.
Oh, yeah, Starfleet Command Gold Edition. It is on Steam. It is on GOG.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
I apparently own it on GOG, too.
Yeah. It's a fun one to have.
My GOG account is as bad or worse than my Steam account for having the absolutely immense list of games that I have bought on the basis of that's cool. I should play that sometime.
Yeah, I've just on the science fiction stuff. I've just bought a game which you literally are considered colonizers on a planet, and you're building up your thing. Your spaceship has crashed, and you've got to build up your civilization and set it up. And it's a test beta version. It was about £10 to buy, but I sort of thought, well, I'll get it and see what it's like. It's so far proved interesting because there's a lot of logistics. What I can say is it's sort of like a city builder version of Satisfactory. And I have so far decided that neither you or I should ever start Satisfactory because judging by
Satisfactory,
the reviews, judging by reviews, you and I would get it, considering it's all about optimization of the processes, you and I would get sucked in.
It would either bore me to tears. Like, I've looked at Satisfactory and I've basically been like, either this will bore me to tears inside of an hour and I'll never pick it up again, or it will suck me down incredibly and I will never even get into anything remotely resembling Endgame, which is what happened to me with Oxygen Not Included. I kept getting to a point where stuff wasn't moving forward. I didn't have enough tunes and stuff to actually move forward my duplicates colony as fast as I wanted it to, and I would get bored eventually. And so I built these very optimized starting colonies, and then I would get frustrated because things weren't moving fast enough, and then I would get bored.
Yeah.
That's me with a lot of that type of game, is I have a very narrow window of I am engaging with this before I get bored. And then, I mean, let's be fair, I built massive castles in Valheim. And got frustrated because I found that one of the new biomes that dropped a while after I started playing the game, I found really unpleasant to engage with for a number of reasons. So I got back to the game, jumped into the new biome, and went, I'm not having fun. And I've never installed the game again since.
But
I'm not having fun. I'm not going to keep playing.
What everyone I've seen who's been playing, who I've seen and her friends who played it Satisfactory, I think with both you and me, we would lose about a week. And I don't know about you, but I can't afford to lose a week. So just being obsessed with a game moment. I have enough with Timberborn working in the background. I'm not sure if you play with those particular beavers as well.
I have played Timberborn. It was one of the ones where I found it just didn't hit the right balance for me for those types of games. So I have played it. I did not make...
Have you played it since they added bad water?
I doubt it.
I think you might add like the stuff that's added into it. You might like the changes that's made to the gameplay because that changed it quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I found it just... Yeah, I find that type of game is one of the ones I would very much like to enjoy, but I don't very much. I don't, unless it hits a very specific balance.
Oh yeah. Now we haven't got you. We've got you play Warhammer, but we haven't got you playing Space Marine 2 yet, have we?
I played Space Marine 2 when it came out, shortly afterwards.
Oh, we're going to have to get you into some of the co-op games we're doing on the channel at some point.
That would be fair. I am very, very, very careful with player versus environment games because I have several of them have eaten my entire life for months. Well, past the point where I was having fun, I was just making number go up.
We are thinking about doing some things where we're going to try and get it up so we can be 6 versus 6 and that sort of thing, and playing as teams, because there's settings in which allow you to do that now, and it's a case of there's quite a lot of, it's kind of like Pirates of the Burning Sea, etc. on channel. A lot of the people who follow the Twitch streams on my Twitch streams and those things like the co-op games where we play as groups and we chat away, because it's the community stuff on Discord. I don't know. You've got a Discord for your books, haven't you? I seem to remember talking about it.
It exists. It has not been. There is myself and the friend who created it for me in it right now.
Yes, who's the same admin who has done basically all the work on all of ours and gets a lot of credit from it, if I remember correctly, isn't it?
No, different.
Different. I was wondering because there is one friend who seems to be creating everyone in our groups in the shipshape, etc., and families groups, Discord servers, and rebuilding them all at the moment. I'm sort of going, is it the same one?
No, it's a friend in Calgary here. Apparently, she built it like 2 years ago, and I only got around to adding me to it because this has been a discussion between her and Jack, and they only got around to adding me to it like 2 months ago.
But no, Discord. I like the Discord communities. I do like Discord as a social media platform, as a platform of community building, because it's people have to opt into it. sort of thing.
It's a community platform, not a social media platform, I find, which is an important distinction.
I tend to group them all under sort of social media to the extent of, is it still a public forum? If it is, then it's media. If anyone can log into it, I put it under the media heading in my head, so I know how to act, because it's a public forum, so therefore I do not put in words which I do not want my little cousins to perhaps see if they see on there, because I will get told all about it.
That is fair.
Once I start thinking community platform, I might think it's safe to be safe to talk in ways which is going to get me into trouble. But no. So what's the upcoming books? What's the upcoming books you're most looking forward to? I know you've just written a massive battle scene, which I was supposed to send you and I did actually prepare a whole load of notes to record and send you, but I never got around to sending you in time. I'd needed written it, and I was sort of going, okay, I won't send my notes, because that might, if I send my notes through and you immediately, you will do one of two things. You'll either go, I hate you because you sent this in now and I can't change anything, or you'll want to or you might try and decide going to have to rewrite stuff, and I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. So I just have Adept's Path out, which is the fantasy western, which is, what happens when you have two people's lives in your head.
Yeah.
And
I feel a nicest way. I've currently got I'm the Flower class corvettes, because that's the book which is going to be coming out first, editing, and the U class submarines, and actually, to be honest, John Jellicoe's the Jellicoe book on his time as First Sea Lord are going around my head constantly, because they're the ones I'm editing going through, so they're just living in my head, and I presume it's the same with you.
Well, in this case, it's actually part of the plot of the story, is that the poor guy actually gets someone else's entire life worth of memories shoved in his head.
Oh God, that sounds painful.
I wouldn't say from birth to death, but certainly everything he remembered at the point he died.
Okay,
so, that's early life somewhat fuzzy.
To be honest, I have enough trouble remembering birthdays and anniversaries and dates I'm supposed to, and wouldn't probably if it wasn't for Google. If you add in a whole other person's life in there, that would just confuse the life out of me. I'd never get them correct.
Definitely some of that going on, but the advantage is that if you are fumbling around at the basic novice level of a skill, having having the man who was the last living fully trained master of that skill and all of his memories dumped into your head is kind of useful.
Yes, but is it you who have the skill, or he still has the skill at that point?
Complicated. Addressed in the book.
Oh, good lord.
And then you have the problem of Tyr is already a very, very bitter and angry young man. And the guy who gets shoved in his head has even more reasons to be angry about the same things.
Okay. That's an interesting combination you've loaded up yourself. This is one of the fun things I find about Glynn, because, and I'm going to speak to him almost as if he's not here in the scenario, because he's one of the nicest people I know. Yet he can really write very angry characters, which makes me believe very much in the fact that the Canadians are very nice, up until they choose no longer to be nice, and that's the point at which you should start running.
There's a Doctor Who quote that I like. I'm not necessarily a good man. Good men don't need this many rules. I have an anger management problem. And I know it. So you will very rarely see me get angry.
Yeah. I know.
I write characters sometimes for whom anger management they do not have enough anger management. And therefore, their lives are shit.
Yeah.
That's 4 tier in that series.
Yeah. I have to say, usually when you the only times I've seen you angry are on other people's behalf. And that's the time when you sort of, because I do know this from working with you, and it's sort of, it kind of comes back to quite a lot of people in our group, which I do find funny when the whole group gets together. Is also a similar thing of, we know we can do damage because of the experience and lessons we've learned and things we've done, so we try very hard to not to. So if you attack us individually, we are very, very much we're very, very controlled. But attack another one in our group and watch the rest of us get very angry very quickly on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even at the simplest level, it's like, yeah, you've got six of us, and none of us will inconvenience the waiter for ourselves.
No.
but any of us will call back the waiter for somebody else.
Usually it ends up being me.
Yes.
Usually it does end up being me. Someone, and I wouldn't do it for myself, but yeah, hand up. Or how else do I do this? Do I smile at people? How do I do it? Always checking around what the other people in the restaurant do and how they signal for people. Oh, it was fun times. It was fun times. There was that big that restaurant we went into as a large group in Canada Canada at one point. Not the pub one, the one the other day after we'd gone to the ceremony. I think it was on one of our last few days in Canada.
I don't
No, I think you were
know.
there.
With you then.
No, there were a load of naval officers. I do think you were there. You and your partner were there.
You're right. I think another one you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was quite fun because it was basically the two serving Canadian naval officers were basically going, "You're right, you sure you're right, you've got everything you want," and I'm not sure who it was, but someone said, "I haven't got enough bread," and the hand went up, and it was a case of more bread is needed, and mounted the bread disappeared. Oh, but no, it's good times. So
Other books coming up. That's the Liza, not Liza. Wow, I'm getting the names wrong. Shadow of Mars is coming out in January. That's the one about the staff officer who gets stranded with the stay behind force when the fleet withdraws.
you're not supposed to leave staff officers behind. They might have information which the enemy have.
That's literally goes through the thing of there are maybe 3 people on this planet who are worse to get captured alive than me. And I'm pretty sure one of them is supposed to be dead. So, and the other 2 are in the giant concrete bunkers we built for the stay behind force.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Seriously, you try not to do that with people that.
They left behind the Major Strike Formation's operations officer. The woman who probably knows as much about the construction plans of the new fleet that's intended to come back and kick the enemy off this occupied planet as anyone alive.
Yeah,
she's about as capable of sitting on her hands and not doing something while a planet is being occupied and brutalized as you might think.
Oh, good lord. You realise that is the person in which you detach a team of Gurkhas or Royal Marines or other specialised infantry to drag kicking and screaming off the planet before you evacuate.
It was either, I believe the situation that came down where they pulled out was either they took the entire fleet out to distract the approaching force, or they risked losing the evacuation convoy with 30 million civilians aboard.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved out straight away.
Yeah.
The ambassador, who was supposed to stay on the planet, went with the fleet, and the operations officer, who wasn't supposed to stay on the planet, stayed behind.
Yeah, okay. Just some small issues for diplomacy going on there, but okay. Well, no diplomatic option is being sought. It's going to be a fun one to read. I know it's going to be a fun one to read.
And then the one after that I was getting advice from you and Dan F, as it turns out in the end, on what some of the fleet changes from the other side might look like, is Broken Prince, and that's coming out in March, I believe.
Yeah,
I'm just kicking off what'll be my book for May, which is you probably won't be much interested in because it's my return to urban fantasy.
I'm sure it'll still be fun to characters. Let's be honest. A nice way, I might not be interested. I might not personally read it, but you all know Dan F will read it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting trying to write someone who is about as close to a true white knight as the modern world can create.
Oh, good.
And
Lord.
is, along with that, and of course, as the corollary, is a very heavily traumatized ex-special ops soldier, basically.
Of course. You see, that's the thing, that was the sort of... it's the fun thing we have with the modern world is our definition of hero versus the original Greek definition of hero, where they would do heroic things, but they were still very much humans. They were subject to their own egos and issues and all these things. Whereas these days, we always pretend our heroes have to be perfect.
Yeah. No, Aaron is the main character of this book, and he is a very good person, but I'm not going to say he's perfect by any stretch.
Yeah. He said, you do a good line in those characters. You do a good line in those characters.
He is somewhat less of an iron stick up his ass, I think. I haven't started writing him yet, than some of my determinedly good people. I've definitely had a couple of characters where their biggest flaw is their inflexibility on their morals.
Oh, there've been a couple who've had those issues. Although you do also do the morally flexible characters quite well. You know, the occasional naval officer who hijacks their own fleet to go and do the jobs and those sort of things.
I think the one you're thinking of didn't hijack his own fleet. The fleet didn't exist. He stole a bunch of ships about to be decommissioned, but recruited a bunch of no longer active officers and crew to crew said ships, and then took them out past the border without orders into a section of the world where they're only supposed to deploy with specific approval from the government.
Yeah, hijacked a fleet. That's the long way around, but hijacked the fleet. Yes, that's the one which the immortal words of Drac on that subject when reading it was going, yes, he really chose the right one of us to name that character after, and I went, thank you. No. What are you saying about this here? But no, no. It's one of those fun things. I have to say, is getting to chat away with you about these things about science fiction, history, and walking through, because there is stuff in there which sometimes you sit there and go. I think it was I sent you through a quote today, didn't I? Or was it yesterday? Today. I sent you through a quote because I'd been reading, and it was basically reading some notes and going through various things. You have this quote about how to build trust. And it's SOE in Germany and how they're building trust. And I guess in a society where there is no trust, sometimes the basis where you can build, you can actually build loyalty is by giving people trust. Mm-hmm. And that sort of idea, I can't remember the exact quote now, but that sort of was its sort of theme. And the thing is, that's the sort of thing which is true in history. But I did love the way you came back and went, I couldn't put that in a book. No one would believe that.
Good to a point, but people want. I see it a lot in my genre. Is like there's a degree of just cynicism that people expect from it that I don't. That is unrealistic in its own way, frankly. And to a certain extent, I recognize that I'm kind of off over in my own bubble of the subgenre, writing the world where the hard men making hard decisions are often wrong and usually the villain. Walking stick.
Yes. Also, sometimes a bit of a moron, but leave that to one side in the case of walking stick.
Myopic.
Yeah, no, he was one of he's one of the few characters you've ever written where I've literally gone, I do not know how this guy got to high command. Seriously, I don't. It's the kind of scenario where you're sitting there. Let's put it this way. Sometimes I read books, and the only books I occasionally put down is where they're writing the setting so corrupt they don't seem to understand that the society would literally have collapsed by that point with that level of corruption. Mm. If you've got that sort of a level of corruption going on, the society is literally going to corrupt. And for someone like Walking Stick to get to that higher command, I'm sitting there going, surely, at some point, someone actually asked them, so do any of your theoretical ideas ever actually work in reality?
You're not shown any of them on screen.
He comes up with these wonderful theoretical plans, but I'm looking at going, they're about a 10-stage plan when you should be doing about a 3.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of Admiral Cunningham, who basically, Admiral Cunningham's idea was to have lots of things going on, but they're very simple plans for the individual forces to do. Walking Stick likes to have incredibly complex things going on by multiple forces at the same time, which he can't really properly support or keep track of, and you just go, no, just stop. Stop it. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Well, especially with the first series, Walking Stick's objective was as much to overawe his enemy as it was to defeat them.
Yeah.
And he managed to... But that was his goal. That was his plan.
Yeah, but the trouble is, if you want to do that, then you should really just keep your fleet together in one solid mass and go around bashing things on the head one after the other, because then you will overawe them, because you're turning up with a massive fleet, and they can't confront you with anything less than a massive fleet. But the trouble is... Yeah, he's trying to also I want to take out all these different places at the same time and spread my forces out, and... I know.
The Alliance to spread their forces out, but yeah.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, he is by he has that nature as a trying to do multiple converging ops, etc., because otherwise there isn't much of a story.
I know. I do realise that it has to be there for the story, but there is part of me which is in a nice way, I'm also the person who sits there and calls Rommel regularly the person for whom logistics happens to other people. Who writes by the way, if you've ever read Rommel's infantry book, it's actually a very good guide for infantry warfare. It's also probably the reason why, once you read that book, you sit there and go, why were you ever put in charge of an armoured formation? Try to do all that. You're an infantryman. A very good infantryman, but you shouldn't be anywhere near logistics or artillery, or definitely not armour coordination, but okay.
I read his... I don't think I read his... I haven't read his book. I read his biography. We were talking about biography.
Yeah.
I have read Rommel's biography, which was hilarious when I was writing because I read it while I was writing Kyle Roberts. And I did not realize how many... I had written... I think I was in like book 2 or 3 of the series. So there was a stack of parallels between Rommel and Roberts that I did not intend to be there. Like getting your high school girlfriend pregnant and running away to join the military.
Yeah. Oh, yes. They did that a lot. But no. Oh, well. So, yeah. You got some fun books coming out, and you're doing some fun stuff. And it's one of the things of, again...
the moment of, I have written how many books? Because I don't actually know.
We have to actually ask Dan F. that, because Dan F's the only one who I think has read all but 2 of them. Probably when this video comes out, he'll be watching it and he'll be messaging me going, no, I've read them now.
The terrifying secret that I don't mention very often, though I probably have said it enough at this point that it's not really a secret, is I have not read every book I've written.
Oh, good lord! I can understand that one. I've watched not watched all my videos I've done. After I've gone through watching them for the editing process and putting them together, I rarely want to see the recorded videos ever again.
Yeah, because at this point I read them with the copy edit, so I make sure I've actually read the finished book. But there was a point where I was just going, show me next correction on the copy edits. And basically was not reading my own books at all. I realized that wasn't necessarily the best way to do it. Apparently Broken Prince was my 86th written novel.
And how many of them have come out on audiobook?
Most. Not all, but most.
Because that's something else you do, which is very good, is you do put out a lot of audiobooks. And I know I have quite a lot of podcast listeners too on this channel, because I do a lot of podcasting. And, yeah, if you like audiobooks...
My guess off the top of my head would be I've got 83 published novels and like 77 or 78 are in audio.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the Kickstarter fantasy series, which is not in audio, and there's one of the Tyrion card book. Adept's Path isn't in audio and won't be unless the book of the first 3 actually starts selling. That is the only one of my audiobooks that has not earned out that doesn't look like it will. Which is unfortunate, because I think the narrator did an excellent job with it, but it doesn't seem to be moving.
Sometimes that's the way things go. People often ask me about getting audiobook versions of the history books, and I sit there and go, I'd love to, but the trouble is I'm not sure how that's going to work. I might, when I go down, if depending on how the Kindle books do, which I'm self-publishing, depending on how they do, I might go down that road, but it's going to be a case of...
Usually it's about 9,000 words per finished hour, and if you're looking for a good narrator, you're looking at about a minimum of $200 per finished hour.
Yeah.
And that's a hard slog to earn back. If you
True.
don't expect to sell. Like, I generally eyeball it as it takes me about 1,000 audiobook sales to earn back the cost of making the audiobook.
I was basically planning on actually asking Drac to do it for a burger. Because he probably
would work more effective. That would be cheaper.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is that per finished hour does generally include editing, audio cleanup, all of that.
I'd probably end up having to do that myself.
Yeah.
But I also think I might actually have to buy more than one burger.
Burger per hour.
He'd eat them. You know him and burgers.
Oh, yeah. Show up outside his office, show up outside the sound booth every hour he's recording, and slide a burger through the door.
Yeah. Oh. I'm going to say thank you for doing this and for chatting away, because it was kind of last minute to put it together, but thank you.
Jack approves because this probably minimized the amount of work I was doing today, and I probably need to take a break from work today.
Thank you for being here.
We moved.
And if there's anything you want any message you want to tack on the end to the people watching, anything you want to go buy a book.
Go buy a book. Go tell 10,000 of your best friends to buy a book.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed that. It was a bit of a sort of unscripted, just a chat sort of thing, but it was a case of me and Glynn were chatting away, and I said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about tomorrow. The person I was supposed to be recording with is suddenly unavailable. And Glynn went, no, we can have a chat. What should we chat about? Books. Yeah, we'll chat about books. So it's me and Glynn chatting books. And I hope you enjoyed it. And a few things that I added in extra as well, which hopefully explain some of the things that are going on. I know there are people who comment under my videos sometimes, I don't want to know how the sausage is made, sort of thing. But I think understanding how the sausage is made in terms of Amazon, YouTube, all these things, actually helps you make better informed decisions. Because if you can understand what makes Amazon and YouTube recommend things to you, you can better adapt yourself to make sure you're getting what you actually want out of Amazon and YouTube. Anyway, take care, hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please do like, share, and subscribe. It does help the channel grow. And please go look up Glynn's books if you haven't before. I think you'll enjoy them.